Christine, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
I see a bunch of nice people here. Do you let in everybody or only the nice people?
You know what? I'm letting in the nice people first, and
I
then
see.
I'm letting everyone else in.
Okay, I just wanted to
I'm letting
that.
them all in because you know what? Information is power, and I don't care what your background is or what your industry is or your education level. Information is power, and everyone needs to know what we're going to talk about today. And what Alex is going to talk about is, sorry, but we found someone who's a better fit. And that usually comes after the interview, whether it's a phone interview or an in-person video interview. And you're like, well, what does that mean? You know, so he's going to talk about all of those things that it means and how we can avoid ever hearing that because we really want the job. So it's really important that we're paying attention and maybe even incorporating 1, 2, 3, several tidbits into what we're doing as we're moving along in our job search process. Alex is a wonderful friend and wonderful professional. He's been doing this for a very long time and has spoken to tons of groups as well as shared information all across, gosh, what is it? More than the tri-state area, I bet. And he is just telling everybody from the mountaintops what he can do and how to move forward in your job search. So I would definitely take information from him. If you would like to do a screenshot because it's really important and you want to remember that information, there's a wonderful little print screen button at the top of your computer. You press the print screen and it's magically in your mouse. Directions are in the chat box. Once again, in a few minutes, I'm going to copy and paste that so that you can do the print screen for information if you are interested. And again, the goal is that you all land and that you never come again. So definitely pay attention to what Alex is saying because he is awesome and he's full of so much knowledge, so many industries, and he is going to share that with you. This is a wonderful opportunity to listen to him and take notes because I highly recommend them. And I can tell you that Nancy would and Sam would and a lot of other people on the call have probably heard Alex speak and can attest to his knowledge and expertise. So take it away, Alex. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine, can we make an arrangement that we do this very often? Nowhere else I go, I get so many nice words about me. So yeah, if we can set this up 2 or 3 times a week, it would make me feel good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think everyone needs that, right?
Thanks for showing up. My presentation will take just about an hour. It's going to be fast-paced, it's colorful, it's educational. I would say it's interesting. I have 2 stops before the ending where I'm going to say, do you have any questions? Is there anything you want to share? And so forth. Christine, I cannot watch the chat. So if people have a question, bounce it back. We'll do the best. Easy question I can sometimes answer. Difficult question, I will pass it on to someone else.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, I will start, and I want you to pay close attention to the first few slides because everything is a kind of going off from there. So let's start with this. I decided to name this presentation, sorry, but we found someone who's better fit. Why? Because so many people told me that this is what they heard. They went to the interview, they have several interviews, everything went well. You know, I work with my clients, they're so excited. And then they called me and said, Alex, this is what they told me. So I want you to understand the whole idea is to kind of make a prediction, if you can, how to avoid something like this. So I want to make sure that we are all on the same page. The expression better fit in the title implied, we are talking cultural fit, nothing else. So don't misunderstand this. You don't need a job, you need a good job with a good cultural fit. A bad job or a bad culture is worse than not having a job. I put this here. I think this is a kind of an emotion statement for me, because let me tell you, I had 15 amazingly good years while I was working in Morristown, New Jersey for Honeywell. I had terrible, terrible, terrible jobs in my past. I resigned, I couldn't take it anymore, or I was fired, and that was the best thing that happened to me. And let me tell you, a good job is enriching you, makes you happy. A bad job is sucking all the energy out of you. A bad job is deteriorating your health. So this is so important for me. And what you see here in blue, you don't need a job, you need a good job with a good culture fit. I said this to millions of people because I firmly believe in it. The relationship with your boss will dictate whether this is a good culture fit or not. You know, when you ask a friend, somebody, you ask them, oh, how is it working for XYZ company? Whatever the person says essentially expresses his or her relationship with the boss. You love your boss, you have a good relationship, the company is fantastic. Let's say you don't get along with your boss and you say, so how is that company? It's not that good. So again, everything is a kind of filtered through your relationship with the boss. The candidate, no, Christine, I want to ask you something. I see on my screen here those bands that you probably see. If you can take that off, because you see, I have two screens, and the screen that you see is up there, and I see the people down here on my screen. But that is a kind of blocking. If you can take that off, yeah, let me see if I can take this off. Okay, good. Is this okay, Christine?
Yep, it's fine here.
Okay, so here's a question then. How can a candidate predict the boss and company culture before engaging? This is the big question that we try to answer today. 20% of the signs are visible, such as language, practices, attire, and office etiquette. Let me tell you, one of the positions I had was 2 years in Manhattan with a utility company. It's called Con Edison. Let me tell you, talking about bad etiquette and bad behavior and so forth, in that company, you know, men, women, young, old, doesn't matter. If you don't use an F word at the beginning, middle, or end of the sentence, you are not a part of our culture. If you work for
way.
Oh my God.
Gosh.
And I heard this women, men, I mean, everybody, F this, F that, the whole day.
Well, I think that's important for everyone to know that that is part of the culture, because I didn't know. I've never interviewed for them. See,
you know,
that's good to know.
I had such a problem, you know, I simply don't need to use those words. I never do. I was an outcast because I don't speak this way. You know, it's a union shop and management, a union fight every day. It was a bad culture. I was so lucky that I got my next job. So again, 20% are visible. However, 80% of the signs are not visible. And they are manifested via interaction with others. And they are the most difficult to identify. And this is what I'm going to talk about. This is what I'm going to talk about. Okay, take a look at this picture. Christine, if you can take that off the band there, it blocks. It says admit. Can I click on that? So
yeah.
Can I click on
that? Oh, wow.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, no, I don't see that.
Okay,
I already admitted them, so.
Okay, good now. Okay, so look at this slide. Take a look at the two pictures below. During President Biden's recent visit to Israel, He wanted to thank the singing performers couple by shaking hands. But the woman, an Orthodox religious person, is not allowed to shake hands with the man. I'm surprised nobody told him that. Can you imagine the President of the United States is trying to shake your hand, and the woman would not look at the picture. The woman would not extend her hand to the President of the United States. Again, an Orthodox Jewish woman will not shake a hand of a man. That's a given. Okay. So these are some cultural things. I'm surprised nobody was smart enough to alert the president, and please don't shake a hand of an Orthodox Jewish woman. She will not extend her hand. It's a very embarrassing thing. People's behavior are influenced by the local cultures. If you're looking for a job in your own region, there probably won't be any significant cultural barriers. Look, you're looking for a job in New Jersey, probably there will not be significant major cultural clashes because everybody in New Jersey, more or less, behaves the same.
So
However,
no matter where the culture, where they're from, their second generation of whatever race or culture, even if they're in New Jersey, they're more likely to act quote unquote New Jerseyan as opposed to the
right.
culture they're coming from?
Yeah, we assimilate. Okay. Look, we live in New Jersey. We act like each other. There are no major clashes.
Okay.
Even though if you are from China, India, Japan, or Germany, whatever, after a while, yeah. And just so you know a little bit about my background, so they understand where I'm coming from when I'm talking about this. I was born in Romania. I lived there for my first 13 years. Then my family moved to Israel. So I lived in the Middle East for 12 years. Okay. Then I came to the United States 51 years ago. And I can tell you, every so often I say, I don't speak English, I just imitate the Americans. This sounds a little funny, but you know, there is a kind of truth. And I remember when I've gotten to the United States and I came here for the purpose of going to university, I was so embarrassed by my accent because I spoke so differently than the people in the United States. I spoke a kind of a British English, and I was so embarrassed. But after a while, I don't care what people think about my accent anymore. But anyhow, in the United States has several different cultures. For example, people in New Hampshire think and act differently from people in the Midwest, the Deep South, California, or New Jersey. I lived 2 years in New Hampshire. I worked at the hospital. I was a department head. And I can tell you that after 2-3 days being there on the job, this lady called Jackie was an HR director, and she is originally from Scranton, Pennsylvania. So we got together and she told me this, Alex, I want to tell you something about people in New Hampshire. 2 things. 1, think small. 2, don't change my life. And my reaction was, ha, 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 this is so funny. Let me tell you, this was not funny. This was for real. The people in New Hampshire, they think small, they don't have these grandiose ideas and so forth. And they are very much like, don't change my life. This is how we've been, this is how we are, and please don't come here to change my life. That's true. I lived in other parts. I lived for 2 years in Denver, Colorado. Let me tell you, people in Denver are Americans. They speak English. They use the same dollar that all of us use, but they are very different Americans. In Denver, everybody is talking about hiking and going to the mountains and being outdoors and so forth. This is part of the culture. I have a good friend who relocated from New Jersey to Los Angeles. I visited with him and he said, Alex, life in Los Angeles is very different than what I used to be in New Jersey. In Los Angeles, California, You meet a neighbor on the street and they are extremely nice and smiling, and they kind of show extreme happiness to see you. But the relationship ends there. You will never be invited to their house.
So when we're dealing with COVID and we're dealing with a lot of remote or hybrid opportunities, your headquarters for the company could be in Colorado. It could be in Tennessee. It could be in New Hampshire. Does that corporate headquarters kind of dictate what is expected or how that culture would play into your position?
Absolutely, absolutely. Corporate culture is a kind of permeates and cascades down and so forth. So all I want with this presentation to kind of raise your radar, alert you, be aware of it. You remember what my slide before? I said, what you really want, you want to kind of predict and understand the corporate culture. Okay. So these slides are kind of, will kind of highlight a little bit what we're talking about. You'll see. So let me move forward. International cultures differ vastly. And I want to make 2 points here. One, they should be gauged and compared to our own American culture. If you are evaluating a different culture, compare it with what you know here in America. And 2, very important, don't confuse culture difference with personality difference. Very important. It's very easy to kind of mix and confuse them. So, to become able to understand and compare foreign cultures, one must overlay them on different scale models. Now, this lady, the picture that you see here, her name is Erin Meyer. She wrote this book, The Culture Map. By the way, I have this book and I paid a ton of money for this book, as much as 50 cents. In my area, once a year, there is a garage sale and my grandchildren came here and we walked around and this yellow book caught my eye and I took it in my hands and said, oh my God, I need to read this. The lady selling it said, yeah, it's 50 cents. And let me tell you, here is the danger if you want to buy this book. Once you open it, you cannot stop reading from it. It's like a magnet. For me, it was just an amazing, amazing book. I mean, it really opened my eyes to all kinds of cultures. And I want to bring to you some information I learned from Erin. And she says you need to compare it on various scale models. And this is what we're going to do now. So let's talk first about international communication. When you communicate with somebody who is very international, and she points out there are 2 things, something that she calls low context culture versus high context culture. Okay, so I'm going to give you here an example, but let me explain you what it is. First, let's talk about this. In China, bilingual consultant was hired by Erin to assist during a presentation, but he would not speak until asked to. So she is writing in her book that she was invited to make a presentation in China. To be on the safe side, she hired an individual to assist her who is native speaking Chinese. Again, Erin, born and raised in Minneapolis. At the age of 25, she traveled abroad. Currently, she's about 50. She lives outside of Paris. She's married to a Frenchman. She has 2 children. Okay, but she got very involved. She's also a professor at this university called INSEAD. They are in France and they're all over the world. Anyhow, and she's talking about cultural differences. So because of this presentation in China, she hired a native, a local, to assist her. So they talked, she's paying him, she goes to China, she makes a presentation, and this native person she hired, she's paying, would sit there very politely and just listen. At the end of the presentation, she got annoyed. She said, you know, I discussed it with him. He's supposed to help me. He didn't say a word throughout the entire presentation. So at the end, she approaches him and she said, Mr. Chang, or whatever his name is, what do you think? And then he opens his book and he makes a fantastic contribution. At the end of the meeting, when everybody's leaving, she has a meeting with him and says, you didn't jump in, you didn't help me. And he said, I did, only when you asked me to. So we learned something in the culture, in the Chinese culture. Unless somebody to say, Christine, what do you think? You are supposed to be quiet and listening. This is not like in American culture. In American culture, we just jump in and, okay, so again, very true.
So true.
Yeah, very true, very, very true. Now, here's an example. In French, a French person working in America completely misunderstood her performance evaluation. In France, positive feedback is given subtly, whereas negative feedback is given strongly and directly. In the United States, it's the opposite. Positive feedback is given directly and negative feedback is softened. I've done 1 million performance evaluations to all my employees, and I'll tell you, I am sure you experience this. You have your quarterly or whatever, semi-annual or yearly evaluation with your boss. The boss will say, Jim, I like what you did here, and this is great, and this is good, but there are 2 areas I would like you to improve on. So first they start with the positive, then in a nice professional way, they just tell you, these are the areas I wish you would improve on. That's American way, not in France. So here is an example. No, sorry. So here is the story that goes with this. So let's say there is this lady called, let's name her Sophie. So Sophie is a French woman and Aaron knows Sophie, and she was looking for a job in Detroit. Aaron knows somebody in Detroit in the automotive business. So she put them together, she got a job. 3 months later, Aaron is calling Sophie. Sophie, how is the job? How is it going? Oh, great. I love it. I'm doing very well. Actually, I just had my 3 months evaluation. It's great. Oh, great. Wonderful. Goodbye. Now she calls the manager in Detroit. By the way, how is Sophie doing for you guys? Well, we like Sophie. Again, she's in our accounting office. She's not very precise, and that's something in accounting you need to be very detail-oriented, and sometimes she's late with the projects and the assignments. We are not sure if we are going to keep her. Sophie says, it's great, I love it, it's wonderful, I had my evaluation. The manager in Detroit says, and we are not sure if we are going to keep her. What happened? What happened? What happened is exactly what I'm saying here, that the French people, they let you have it up front, so very strong negative words, and the positive words are subtle. In America, it's different. And I have another example at the end about this concept. Okay,
now, Alex, sorry to interrupt you. I have a question. In my job, we hear that very often between an employer's perspective and an employee's perspective, and they're not necessarily on the same page. One is positive, one is negative, and yet they're not meeting in the middle. If it's an American company, are you saying that that's more of a personality trait as opposed to a culture trait? Or if it's a different country, it's probably culture first and then personality?
You know, this is such a complex. And again, I want to be the first one to say, please, I'm not an authority, a top authority.
I think you are. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit.
But I can tell you this. For 15 years, I worked for Honeywell. I started with one department. After 15 years, I had 160 employees, and I have about 30 different departments / functions reporting into me. I became a director, I got promoted. I really loved every single day working for Honeywell. I moved on to another pharma company. The first year and a half, I reported to the vice president, everything went well. Then we had a restructuring, and instead of reporting to the vice president that one hired me, I moved to be in the department of one of my peers. And I knew that my days are numbered. I knew that. I lasted another 6 months. I was fired.
Why?
What happened? What happened?
Yes, what
How
happened?
could Alex change from being such a great employee that he deserves a promotion, he's great, and so forth. And all of a sudden, I'm that bad that I was put on this PIP program and I was out the door. How can that be? So I don't know.
So many people can relate to exactly what you're saying, where they thought everything was going well and they get a new boss and maybe all of a sudden we see PIP. We are suffering those consequences. And I think that a lot of people are definitely relating to what you just said.
I was in many departmental meetings with the vice president, and we were like 6 people reporting to vice president. And this guy that eventually I became a part of his department, when I was on the left, he was always on the right, and vice versa on various issues that the vice president wanted us input. And at one point, I approached the vice president and said, look, I want to tell you, I feel very uncomfortable. If you notice, in every single meeting of yours, you ask us input, I give you my honest input. I'm always on this side, and the other guy is always on the other side. And he said, Alex, this is great. Keep doing what you're doing. You're great. Between the two of you, we will end up somewhere in the middle, and that's where we want to be. But when we restructured and I became a part of my peers' department, I knew it immediately. We are not getting along ideologically, not culture, ideologically. I am of a personality that says, let's do it. I'm positive. This is great. The other person is, this is not what we do here. So when I'm very positive, he's always, this is not what we do here. Okay. Anyhow, let's move on. Okay. So let's continue here. Context is the common denominator when comparing international communication. In a low context country, such as the United States, communication is precise, simple, and clear. In a high context country, such as China, Indonesia, Japan, or South Korea, communication has nuances wherein, and I cannot see this because there is that band there. I think that it says something that it's very subtle. So I have an example here. Okay, here's an example. And here is Mr. Chang, I named him on the left, and this is Ms. Johnson. I want to share with you a piece of communication, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So Ms. Johnson said, it's looked like some of us are going to have to be here on Sunday to host our client visit. Mr. Wang said, I see. Ms. Johnson, can you join us on Sunday? Mr. Wang, yes, I think so. Ms. Johnson, that would be a great help. Mr. Wang, yes, Sunday is an important day. Ms. Johnson, in what way? Mr. Wang, it is my daughter's birthday. Ms. Johnson, oh, how nice. I hope you all enjoy it. Mr. Wang, thank you. I appreciate your understanding. The question is, what do you think? Did Mr. Wang join the team on Sunday? I want you guys to put in the chat, yes, he came to work on Sunday, or no, he didn't. Put in the chat.
No, 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 no. It looks like all no so far. I don't see any.
That's exactly the right
Oh, wait, I see
answer.
one yes. Oh, I have two yeses. Everyone else said no.
You see that you guys are right. He didn't show up on Sunday.
He did or he didn't?
Did not.
He did not. He did not
Did-
show up on Sunday. So the answer is no.
Yeah, but you see,
I wouldn't.
well, he said, "Can you be there?" And he said, "Yes." You see, in America, you say yes. Yes means yes. Okay, very, very interesting. Okay, let's move on. A person from a low context culture might perceive a high context culture as confusing, secretive, lacking transparency, and ineffective. If you are at the other end of the spectrum, you might judge the other person communication as being blunt, and it's black there. I don't know what the word.
Inappropriate and
And
inappropriate.
And that is so. Okay, now that's my first stop.
Any questions?
I gave you a lot of new information. Any questions relevant to what we discussed so far?
We have a lot of no's, a lot of yeses. Anyone have any questions? I'm glad you participated in that question.
At the end, we have time. So if you don't have something immediate, let me move on. And
Go
then
ahead.
at the end, okay. Okay, so let's talk about persuasion in business. Remember, we are talking about persuasion in business. Two systems. One is called application first versus principle first. Under the application first method, facts are laid out first and the theory and sources are provided later, such as in United States, Australia, Canada. Under the principle first method, theory precedes applications, such as in France, Germany, and Italy. So let me explain what happened here. In Germany, for example, an American presenter was prevented from delivering a smooth presentation because of endless participants' interruptions and questions about the source of information, peer reviews, who approved it, who approved the theory. Again, in Germany, as an example, when you make a statement, when you make a presentation, don't just shove it down their throat. You need to come up, what research was done, who approved it. They need a lot of theory before they accept it. Not in America. Now, in the Chinese culture, employees never confront their leader. Disagreements are resolved among equals. You have a problem, you have a disagreement, don't complain to the boss. Unacceptable. Talk it over with other people in your organization. I found this something very interesting. In an experiment, members of a group of Americans and Japanese were asked to take a picture of a person. They were given a camera and they said, take a picture of a person. The Americans took a headshot. The Japanese took a picture in which the individual was a part of the background. Very, very interesting. In America, I suspect, if somebody says, oh, here is my camera, do you mind taking a picture of me? It's most likely the headshot, this is what you see, like the picture on the right side. In the Japanese culture, they will want to see everything in the background. Again, that's a cultural difference. Cheese means different things in different cultures. I took this, by the way, from LinkedIn. Look at the 6 pictures to the right. May I assume these people were not American natives? They could be, but I don't think so. Notice how they don't smile in this picture. This is a picture that I took from their LinkedIn profile. Look at the 4 pictures to the left. They took a headshot and of course they smiled. Again, these are some cultural differences.
So Alex, we have a question in the chat box.
Please.
Does the picture example you just showed, does it apply to LinkedIn profiles? Is there a right or a wrong way?
Yes, if
Background,
you
nodding background.
yes, if you are in America, you better smile. I'll tell you why. A
Smile
smile,
showing teeth, you mean?
say it again.
Smile showing teeth. I mean, I see that
Yeah,
are kind
yeah,
of
but
half
look, look,
smiles
look.
there, but
I spend a lot of time when I work with my clients, I spend a lot of time of interpreting body language communication. Whether you agree or not, but when you communicate, the words that you say represent only a portion of your communication. I can frown, and at the same time I can say, I would love to work for your company. I don't believe you. If you frown and you say, I would love to work for your company, I don't believe you. Now, if you have a genuine big smile, a spark in your eye, fire in your belly, and you say, I would love to work for your company, now I believe you. So my point is, there is a lot of communication through your facial expression. If I look at you, Christine, and you smile at me, I smile at you, that means I like you, you like me. But if I sit like this here and I kind of look angry at you, I don't have to say, Christine, I really don't like you.
and I would be off put, like, oh my gosh, she doesn't like me, so let me get off.
Exactly. So facial expression means a lot.
Do
One
you
of the
think when
things,
somebody applies for a job that that picture that they have on their LinkedIn profile kind of goes along with stating and backing up the words that
absolutely,
are in a cover letter, so to speak?
not 100, 1,000%. Let me tell you,
1000%. Oh,
it
listen to that,
happens
guys.
to me. It happens to me all the time.
All
Again,
right.
I work with my clients. I work with my clients via Zoom. I look them up. We start via email, whatever, and at one point we are on Zoom. I look them up on LinkedIn and I see the picture. So when I send the LinkedIn invite, I expect that person that I recognize from the LinkedIn picture to be showing up on my screen. I don't know how to put it. Sometimes I'm surprised and disappointed because the person on LinkedIn is A, but the real person on my screen is B. And by the way, they're not the same. So yes, my point is a smile doesn't matter where you live on earth. It gives a very positive feeling.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about leadership and hierarchy. There is something called egalitarian leadership versus hierarchical leadership. The egalitarian leadership, there is a narrow distance between the boss and others. The boss is a facilitator among equals in a flat organization, such as in Denmark, Israel, and Sweden. I can attest to that 1,000%. I lived in Israel. I don't know how many of you know, but yesterday there were elections in Israel. I don't know what the prediction is, but Bibi Netanyahu may have a chance to be again the prime minister. Let me tell you, in America, you see President Biden, you say, Mr. President, right? In Israel, when you happen to talk to Netanyahu, you don't say Mr. Prime Minister, you say Bibi. Very common, that's the way it is. I served 3 years in the Israeli army. It's a mandatory service. And, you know, I was a low-ranking soldier, and then I was promoted. But I had in my unit, you know, actually even one general. That's a very high rank. You don't call him general, you call him by the first name.
Wow.
Very common, absolutely very common. That's a local culture. Hierarchical leadership. Wide distance between the boss and others. The boss leads from the front. Status is important. The organizational chart is multi-layered, and communication follows hierarchical line, such as in India, Japan, Nigeria, and South Korea. Again, in those cultures, It's very silo, and you respect the person at the bottom. He is not equal to you. Next subject we talk about, how do we make decision? And there are two ways. One is consensual versus top-down. Consensual decision. They are made in groups with a unanimous agreement, such as in Japan, Netherlands, and Sweden. In those countries, you work with your team, you hammer it out, but at the end, the group has to have an agreement and meet on the topic. That's in these countries. Then there is something that's called the top-down. Top-down decisions made by an individual, typically the boss, such as in China, India, and Russia. Yes, in Russia, yes. The United States is in the middle with a combination of a high value reach by both egalitarian and top-down decision process. But once the boss decides, the two come to a consensus. Again, it's a different way of group decision making. Again, there are some countries that the boss is going to dictate what will happen. Okay, here's my second stop. Any questions at this point?
We actually had someone that took some time to type, and they have a question about what we talked about earlier before you had questions. Do you want to save that to the end?
No. That's
okay, all right. I think we need to recognize, we were talking about the daughter's birthday and Sunday working and that kind of thing. And she had said, I think we need to recognize that Ms. Johnson was the one who changed the context when she said that she hopes he enjoys the birthday celebration, giving recognition that he will not attend. What do you think?
My opinion is, and again, it's only one opinion out of many of you, my opinion is that she, in a very polite way, if you say, Alex, Sunday is my birthday, I automatically, Christine, happy birthday, enjoy. That's a kind of an automatic statement. I don't change the content. I don't say by that, oh, don't worry about our issues with this very important VIP visitor. That's not what I meant. Again, you see the nuances, the cultural differences, the nuances. This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Does anybody have questions regarding our second section, which we just talked about, as far as leadership goes and thought processes, depending on where you are for leadership, big organizations versus smaller organizations making decisions, that kind of thing?
If you don't, again, we have plenty of time at the end.
Keep going then.
Okay, so let's move on. Trust building. Task-based versus relationship-based. Again, trust building. How do you build trust? Task-based trust is built on business-related activities. Relationships are built or dropped based on circumstances, such as in the United States, Denmark, Germany, and Netherlands. I want to share with you my personal experience. I told you I worked for Honeywell. I was a corporate director, and I had, as such, every level in the organization has different signing authority. I was given $250,000 signing authority. In other words, any bill that comes to my desk, which is $250,000 or less, I can sign on it, accounts payable is going to pay it. If it's more than that, I need to escalate this to my boss. My boss had $1 million. His boss had, the vice president had $5 million. Anything above $5 million contract or anything needs to be signed by the CEO. But I had any bill that comes to my desk that's less than $250,000, I put my signature, accounts payable is not even questioning this. I had a lot of authority. I hired contractors, big box contractors, many, to work for Honeywell, and I was the contact person. By the way, I had lots of friends at Honeywell until I left the company. The friendship evaporated and totally disappeared. Those people that supposedly befriended me while I had all this authority, they totally disappeared. No phone call, no email, no nothing. I am no value to them anymore. And the relationship dropped. Very sad, very personal, very upsetting, but I'm telling you the reality.
So they were more or less, quote unquote, work friends or acquaintances as opposed to.
They pretend that they are my friends because I had authority to fire them.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
And the moment I was no relevant because I left on my own Honeywell. As soon as I left Honeywell, I'm gone. I never heard from them ever again.
Okay.
So anyhow, relationship-based trust is built on sharing meals, drinks. It is a slow developing. Others trust opinion count, such as in Brazil, China, India, Saudi Arabia, and Thailand. The example that Erin is writing in the book is this. I think she had to go, or somebody else had to go to India because Americans bought the Indian company and they started to integrate. So they had to go to India and start working with the other company that they just bought with their leadership. The meeting did not go well. The American person became very frustrated. Look, we bought them, and oh my God, they are not cooperating. So at the end of day one, the individual American went to somebody who is a native in India and said, look, I have to tell you, I'm very disappointed. I came here with some plans. We need to get going. We need to integrate. They are just fighting me. So the individual said, they're fighting you because you are not accepted by them. Oh, so what do I need to do? He said, take them out for a dinner, have a few meals with them, have a drink with them, socialize with them. He said, oh, that's a great idea. So the next day, he said, by the way, tonight you're all invited, you're my guests, and we go to a restaurant. And they did. The day after they had a meal and their drinks, it's like day and night. Business was smooth, it went on and so forth. So what does that mean? It's a relationship development, and you develop that by talking about your grandchildren and your garden and your dog and your wife or your husband and your whatever. That's how you develop relationship. Very important, very big cultural difference. In the United States, business and friendship are kept separate. In Brazil and China, they're interrelated. Europeans see Americans as very politically correct, but at the same time, inauthentic. That's the opinion of these countries about America. Here is something very interesting. Read this. In the diamond business, there are no written and signed contracts. Business is based on a handshake and saying mazel and bracha, meaning luck and blessing. So let me tell you about this. 30 plus years ago, I met an individual who is third generation in the diamond business. He had a store on 47th Street in Manhattan, if you guys know that area. That's all jewelry and diamond business. And again, heavily, these are businesses owned by Jewish people. Anyhow, he told me 30 years ago that in the diamond business, there are no contracts. It's a handshake, and then we say this saying, and that's it. So now, in preparation of this presentation, I called that individual that I spoke with 30 years ago, And I said, you remember you telling me that I'm making a presentation. I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about. And he said, absolutely so. So I said, now, wait a second. I don't understand. In America, you have a contractor doing $550 replacing the sink in your bathroom. And very often there is a written document. It's a contract. You deal with hundreds of thousands of dollars of diamonds. And are you telling me there's no contract? And he said, yes, there is no contract. So I said, okay, let me in. Tell me a little bit more. How does this happen? He says, look, there is somebody in the diamond business that wants to sell, and there's somebody in the diamond business that wants to buy. They are meeting. They take every single gem, every single stone. They evaluate it. They argue, they discuss, they agree. And then if the buyer says, I want to buy it, they put it on the side. Then they go to the next piece of diamond. And they do this. And then at the end, there are on the right side or on the left side, there are those that the buyer said, I want to buy this. Now, they list it on a piece of paper and they show to each other, is this what we are talking about? The seller says yes, the buyer says yes. They shake hands and they say this, Mazel and Bochum, which means luck and blessing. That's it. No contracts, nothing. So I said, now, okay, fine, I agree. But, this business has been going on for decades and decades and decades, buying and selling jewelry. Don't tell me that there is no disagreement here. He said, yes, there are disagreements sometimes. But there is like an arbitration. It happens occasionally, and there is like an upper body of arbitration in the business. But I still don't understand, how can you sell or buy hundreds of thousands of dollars of goods without any contracts? And this is what he said. In this business, your name and reputation is the contract. He said it takes only once for somebody to say, I dealt with this person and he wasn't correct. It takes only once. You might as well close a business, because once a word is out that you are not a fair person, you're out of business.
That is very interesting, Alex. I can't even believe that.
It's amazing. Hundreds of thousands of dollars of business every day, no contract. Once you shake hands and you just say this, it's a deal, and more than 10 signatures. Isn't this amazing?
Absolutely. Sammy, you have a question.
Actually, I have a comment. I mean, the same thing applies, and why it's so important to network and have introductions, because at the point of an introduction, the person doing the introduction, it's their reputation, not the person who wants the introduction. And it's really important that that person be confident in this connection they're introducing. And that's why you have to network. You can't just show up at the last minute and say, hey, I'm Sam. Christine, could you introduce me to Alex? You have to have had that conversation. And it might only be a half an hour, but you have to build a relationship in order to do that, because it's my reputation on the line when I go to introduce you.
I love that you said that, Sam. And the reputation has so much to do with just job search in general, let alone networking, let alone selling diamonds. It goes across the board, and that's pretty important. Thank you.
So next subject, how people disagree. There are two ways. One is confrontational versus non-confrontational. Confrontational. Open confrontation is appropriate and will not ruin a relationship, such as in France, Germany, Israel, and Russia. So in this book that I read, she says, again, Erin lives now in France. And she says she was invited socially to somebody's house with several other couples. The host lived on a property adjacent to a golf course. And, there was meal and drinks, and At one point, the host says, "We love to be here. It's a great property, and we have this golf course, but twice a year we have a semi-yearly tournament, and so many people come here. We don't like it." And one of the members of the party at her house says, "You said you don't like it because you are egotistical." So Aaron, who is American by education culture, said, "Oh my God, these people will never talk again." In America, if you embarrass, let's say, Christine, I'm at your house with other people, and I say, "Christine, you are an egotistical person. Probably you'll never talk to me again." You'll be very embarrassed by the fact that in front of everybody, I pointed my finger at you and said that.
Mhm.
In France, it's common. It's happening. And I can
That's
attest to that.
interesting.
I can attest, again, I told you, I lived in Israel. I lived 12 years there. And I
Mhm.
can tell you, to make such a statement is common. It's not pleasant. Don't misunderstand me. It's not pleasant. But it's very common. People get together and people talk. And for me to say, "Sam, you have no idea what you're talking about." Okay, this is very, very common. It's an insulting statement. But in that culture, it's okay. It's accepted.
So let me ask you, Alex, going off your slides, going off your entire presentation today, we all live in New Jersey for the most part. And New Jersey has this culture compared to that might be different from the Midwest or the Northwest or whatever happens to be. So I'm wondering, do we take some of that inherent culture from the countries that maybe we emigrated from and incorporate that into the states? And as a leader of a company, maybe that becomes part of our personality. So when we are interviewing, we're also bringing that to the table to make
Okay.
decisions.
Because there is a saying, "When you are in Rome, behave like a Roman."
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
When you are in Jersey, behave like a New Jersey. Okay, now, again, you remember my slide, don't confuse cultural
Yes.
difference with personality difference.
Yes.
I can tell you, I have a very good friend who was my client over 10 years ago. The individual is originally from Germany, and he worked for a company, and his boss was somebody from China.
Mhm.
The disagreements were daily. I swear to you that my friend, the German, he's an amazing, positive person. But he could not get along with the boss, who was very Chinese by culture. Now, I'm not saying that this is right and this is wrong or vice versa. All I'm saying, there is a confrontation, there is an innate disagreement between the two cultures. I'm not saying that one is right and one is wrong. There is just a disagreement.
Different way. Mhm.
And the reason I point this out, you may be working for a person that has a very different culture than yours. Expect some friction. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Okay, so non-confrontational. Again, open confrontation is inappropriate and breaks group harmony or negatively affects relationship, such as Indonesia, Japan, and Thailand. There, it's not to be confrontational. Disagreements may have emotionally expressive components. In Arabic countries, showing emotion is part of the show. For instance, by providing driving direction to someone. So here is the story. Aaron was invited to do a workshop, I think in United Arab Emirates or in Dubai, somewhere in the Middle East. So she told the participants in the meeting, this weekend I'm going out of town to a place, to a hotel. One of the participants said, oh, I know that area. That's not very far. I'm so happy to give you a ride. So Aaron said, oh, you're sweet. That's great. Let's do that. So they start driving 15 minutes on the way. This lady, who was Arabic, local, stops the car, opens a window, and she's talking to a gentleman the other side of the street, of course, in Arabic. She's asking something, he's answering, she's asking, their voice is escalated. I mean, you could see the voice is escalating. This lady, the driver, steps out of the car, approaches that man, and they keep talking, and they talk very loud, and they use their hands, and Aaron is sitting in the car and says, oh my God, they are starting a fist fight. So when this woman comes back to the car, she said, oh my God, what happened? She said, nothing. What do you mean? You guys were just about to start a fist fight. She said, no, he just gave me directions. And you know what? I could see this so well. I told you, I lived in the Middle East. I'm familiar with this. People are very emotional, the way they talk and all that. They don't mean anything bad. This is just a cultural thing. They're very emotional. He was just giving direction. She stepped out of the car. She couldn't hear. That's all. Okay, isn't that interesting? Anyhow, let's go on. Okay, so in conclusion, again, this is the end. Each of us uses the word through our cultures, and it is obvious yet difficult to comprehend because people in other parts of the world behave differently from us and from one another. Okay, so we view our world through our own eyes with our own cultural background. So here is and I'm going to put up here my contact information in case you want to email me, whatever. I'm done. Questions, and I'm here to answer as much as I can.
Any questions for Alex or anyone else? Any questions? Sam raised his hand. Go for it.
Just a little aside to this, Alex, because what you're talking about today applies across almost everything multiculturally. I have a girlfriend who's from Argentina, and I can't tell you how many times we disagree about something because her use of the English words is interpreted differently by either she or me. And it's very difficult. You have to be very clear. It's almost, you have to repeat things. There's an old adage to repeat things 3 times, and you almost have to do that whenever you're dealing multiculturally. Communication is so important, and it's not that one party is bad and the other one is good or vice versa. It's just a different communication, different language, different interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Alex, we have another question here. Can you provide any direct guidance on how we can prepare for ensuring that we are the right fit? Often it's not cultural, in my experience, when you are applying for a very competitive role.
Okay, excellent question. I'm not sure if I can fully answer that, but here is what it is. All I'm asking you, when you go for an interview, the interview is much beyond spending an hour or half an hour with the interviewer. You want to find out what is a culture in that company, if you can. And you do, again, you remember my slide, 20% of stuff is visible, but 80% is a kind of hidden. You may want to explore through various avenues anything you can find out about the other company, the culture of that company. If you can somehow talk to people, get multiple opinions. One thing I'm going to write a little later on today. Do you guys know what desk bombing is?
I'm sorry, what is it? Desk bombing?
Desk bombing. Do you know what it is?
You have me on the edge of my seat. I don't know about anybody else. I don't know what that is.
I'm going to write something on LinkedIn about this today because I found out about this reading an article yesterday.
All right, everybody. Yeah, follow Alex on LinkedIn so you know and can learn about desk bombing.
Desk bombing is a new phenomenon. Let's say you are working out of the office and you go to 3 cubicles down and you talk to that person. You surprise that person by coming in person to that cubicle. That's called desk bombing.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yes, because of the COVID, we are so used to communicate even simple things by sending an email, but now you are just 12 feet away from my cubicle. I will just step out of my cubicle and come to yours to talk with you. This is called desk bombing. It's a new phenomenon. It's a new word. I'm sure you'll see this more and more.
Wow. Wow.
Is that going to be a generational thing that goes away over time?
I don't know. Maybe or maybe not. I don't know. But I'll tell you what, those days that I used to work in an office, for me to move from my office and go to somebody else on my floor and ask a question was very natural, very normal. There was no issue. Today, this culture expects, don't surprise anyone, don't just walk in, rather send them an email. It's totally against my grain. It's totally against what I like. But evidently, this is a new cultural thing, and probably we'll read more and more about this.
There's a lot of differences to keep up on. What's old is new, what's new is non-existent, or old is I don't really know what it is the in thing and what to do and what not to do. And taking all of that into account, that's its own full-time job. Keeping up to date with all those different changes and being aware. So I do thank you, Alex, for bringing a lot of this to light, because some people, it's brand new information. Most people on the call, brand new information, and they never thought about any of this stuff in that different way. So it was really important to hear that, and the experiences, and of course the stories that go along with it, keep showing the examples.
Yeah, thank you. My single objective was to raise people interest in this topic of cultural difference. We don't think about it. There are very few articles about this. This is not the topic. Everybody talks about ageism and LinkedIn and resume. I mean, everybody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about you get a job and all of a sudden you are in a very different. I had clients that told me, I'm in IT. I work in a company. There are only 10 people. It's me and another 9 people. All the other people are originally from India. I said, so does that matter? He said, yes, they behave differently.
Yeah. That's interesting. Very interesting. Well, I do appreciate that. And it looks like with all the thank yous that we have in our chat box, a lot of other people do too. Thank you. It was a very helpful and excellent presentation. Very informative. Thank you for sharing, Alex, your life experiences. And yes, welcome. Definitely would love to see you back again, Alex. So,
Christine, I have to make a confession. I don't know if my audience is happier or I'm happier. I was so happy to have this opportunity. This is such an important topic, and we need to talk about it.
Absolutely. I don't think that it's just as important as all that other things that go into job search, to be aware of what's going on around you even without job search, just professionally, what's going on personally around you. You're buying a diamond ring and you need to know how the whole thing works. That's pretty cool to listen up. Absolutely. So, well, thank you all for attending and coming out today. I appreciate it. The recording will be on YouTube, hopefully by the end of the day. And of course, I will send you a thank you note with the link attached in the body of the email so you can watch the replay or share it with your friends. So thanks again, and hopefully you will be able to register, come out next week for our another guest speaker. Lynn Williams will be speaking about resume setup for 2022, what to include, what not to include, and how to move forward with your job search. So,
okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
thank you. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy the sun if you have it.